Hello everyone, Chase from Zacuto, and today I will be showing you how to properly build and balance the Zacuto Indie Recoil with a Sony A7s, but the same principles I go over can be applied to any camera because the Zacuto Indie Recoil is what we refer to as a universal rig, which means its parts can be used to build a recoil system for almost any camera out there. The key to any recoil system is balance, and the most important thing to remember is that your eye, shoulder, and hand placement never change. They will always be in the same spot. So recoil rigs move the camera image to your eye and camera control to your hand so that we can set the camera on the shooter's shoulder and slide it as far behind the shooter as needed to achieve the best possible balance. The adjustability of the parts included in this kit are what help us do this. We've got a VCT universal base plate that comes with two 6.5-inch rods. We have a QR riser that's made up of a Gorilla plate on top of a tripod dock. We have the half cage that comes attached to a 5-inch Z-rail and a cold shoe lock. We've got the recoil handle and a Z-grip swivel that's made up of a Z-grip with a 4.5-inch rod and a swivel. If you're also using a small-bodied camera like this A7s or a DSLR, the first step will be to mount that camera to the QR riser. The QR riser raises these cameras up closer to the lightweight standard distance from the rods so that you can mount a matte box. Loosen the red lever on the Gorilla plate to release it from the tripod dock. Be sure the red lever is oriented to the right and tighten it on with the 1/4-20 screw. The Gorilla plate has an inch of slide capacity, so consider setting it for use with a Zacuto Z Finder or setting it to accommodate certain lens adapters. Once attached, place the Gorilla plate back onto the tripod dock and retighten the red lever. Next, we need to mount the QR riser to the VCT Universal base plate. Screw the VCT Universal's mounting screws into the respective holes on the bottom of the QR riser about halfway. We found that more often than not, the balance point of the camera ends up being where the lens meets the camera body. So we recommend setting that point directly over the center of the shoulder pad to get started. Once we have the rig fully built, we'll use the VCT slide capacity to make further balancing adjustments. Now we've gone ahead and found some more specific placements using the millimeter markings on the VCT Universal. These placements will set the base of the following lenses, which is the point where that lens meets the camera body or adapter, to the precise spot you need to connect that lens's focus ring to a Z-drive. A very compact 50mm Zeiss Prime needs that base set to the VCT Universal's 13mm mark. A slightly longer CP2 lens will allow me to push that point back to the 45mm mark. The Canon 24-70mm version 2 lens gets me back to a 71, and when I put this Canon 30-105 Cine zoom lens on here, I can push the point all the way back to 117. If your VCT does not have these markings, you can measure them back from the plate's protruding edge. Find where the base of your lens needs to be and tighten down the screws. Before we continue, we highly recommend locking your VCT Universal into a VCT 14 or mounting it directly to a tripod because building hands-free off of a stable base is much easier. The rod riser in front of the VCT Universal can be adjusted to use any variety of accessories by loosening or removing the two screws. But to get the rods to the lightweight industry standard with the A7s, which will get a matte box to the correct height, you will need to orient the rod riser's rod ports to the bottom and raise the rod riser until the bottom edge is approximately 1 mm from the surface of the VCT Universal's lip and tighten down the screws. When positioned this way, the center of the rods are the correct 85mm from the center of your lens, which is the lightweight industry standard. Next, we'll mount the half cage's 5-inch rail to the 1/4-20 holes along the right side of the VCT Universal. The multiple holes provide you a decent range to mount the rail, but we recommend centering it to get started. Slide the half cage's mounting jaws onto the 5-inch rail and tighten down the red lever. To get the cold shoe lock into the camera's cold shoe, you'll need to use the half cage's height adjustability and where it's positioned on the 5-inch rail, along with the cold shoe lock side to side and fore and aft adjustability to get the cold shoe lock into the camera's cold shoe and tighten down that red knob. Now the half cage can provide a side handle and essential mounting capabilities, while the cold shoe lock creates a rock-solid foundation by eliminating any free-hanging parts. Slide the recoil handle's jaws onto the half cage's top rail, center it over the camera, and tighten down the red lever. You can slightly loosen the Allen screw above the jaws to position them either vertically or horizontally, and you can loosen the Allen screw completely to move the jaws to the opposite side of the handle. If you plan to use the Zacuto Axis Mini to mount an EVF off the recoil handle, you want to make sure that the handle's 15mm rod port is out front. You do have two cold shoe mounts on the other side of the handle as well that lock any cold shoe accessory firmly into place with a turn of the red lever. To properly operate a recoil rig when it's mounted in a shoulder configuration, an EVF must be used. We recommend using the Axis Mini to mount your EVF off of the recoil handle because this keeps the rod real estate in front of the VCT Universal open for your other accessories. Insert the Axis Mini's 15mm rod into the open port in the handle and tighten it down. The Axis Mini can support any EVF with a 1/4-20 port and some proprietary EVFs using special adapters, but it was made to mount EVFs that utilize airy rosettes like the Zacuto Graticle. We highly recommend using a right-angled micro HDMI adapter to keep the cable's profile down when the camera is sitting close to your head. And remember that with an Axis Mini, whenever you go to a tripod, you can easily reorient the EVF to a much more comfortable upright position. To mount the grip, we must start with the included swivel. This piece's rod ports have independent 360-degree adjustability, so it can be oriented many different ways. But we found that the best way to orient it in this situation is to tighten the rod port onto the front right rod, leaving the open rod port on the outside. Rotate the open port to the preferred position, insert the Z-Grips rod, and tighten down the red lever. You can loosen the red lever on the grip to manipulate its position around the ball joint, and with that, the rig is completely built and ready to be adjusted to the most comfortable position for your shooter. Use the VCT Universal slide capacity to best balance the camera over the center of the shoulder pad. Slide the half cage along the rail on the side to best balance the recoil handle over this point as well. Use the Axis Mini's 3 adjustment points and its side-to-side adjustability with its rod to get the EVF right into the shooter's eye, and adjust the Z-Grip to the most comfortable position. It's very common for smaller, lighter cameras like this one and DSLRs to be set closer to the front of the base plate so that they can connect to accessories or be reached by your hand. Because of this, it's probably going to be slightly front heavy. Of course, it's so light that it's hardly noticeable, but adding accessories to the rear of the VCT Universal can help perfectly center the balance point of a front heavy rig. We can accomplish this with a Zacuto Swiss plate with a battery and/or recorder mounted to it. The Swiss plate can be positioned several different ways on your rear rods, and if these accessories add too much back weight to the rig, you can always slide the camera further forward while keeping your front mounted accessories in the exact same position. We wish you the best when you're out there shooting with your Zacuto Indy Recoil, no matter what camera you're using. And if you have any more questions or want a little more information on any of our specific parts, feel free to check out the product videos available on Zacuto.com. Thanks for watching.